Salutations and welcome, friends. I'm Matthew DeSantis, and this is another episode of the Win Place Show, a podcast devoted to all aspects of horse racing and handicapping that is proudly part of the Amalfi Media Network. Today, we are going to be previewing the Saturday races at Santa Anita. That includes five graded stakes races featuring 3 win and you're in Breeders' Cup races, including 2 Grade 1 races, the Rodeo Drive and the Awesome Again Stakes. So it is a huge Saturday at Santa Anita. Now, before we break it all down, just a quick reminder to follow, download, rate, review, 5 stars, please, and share the Win Place Show on the podcast platform of your choice. We'll continue to have these horse racing previews on a weekly basis. We'll also have race recaps on Mondays where I break down what I got right, what I got wrong from the previous weekend, not above criticism and self-reflection. That's a good human attribute to have. And also lessons learned from how things are going to play out moving forward based upon what happened over the weekend. I also will be having interviews with prominent figures from across the horse racing industry, working on getting some of those lined up in the next couple of weeks, and episodes covering the latest breaking news in the sport. I'm probably going to have one next week updating some information with regards to the Breeders' Cup, some decisions to either run horses or not run horses. That's going to be kind of interesting. The beauty of our horse racing coverage, though, at the Win Place Show is that we cater to you no matter what form of media you enjoy. You like listening? Good. We got the podcast. Do you enjoy watching videos? Well, we got the Win Place Show YouTube channel. You can watch us. Do you prefer reading? Do you just want some silence and contemplation? Well, the good news is we have a blog that corresponds with each of these episodes where I give you my Win Place Show picks for the entire card, not just the graded stakes races. So all of the races. And the best place to get all of that content is to head over to amalfimedia.com, where we have a lot of great stuff, not just horse racing. You might just discover there's a lot of other great content you enjoy over there. And you can also follow me on Twitter to get this information at the handle @FailedToMenace. Again, my favorite horse racing note, @FailedToMenace. Now remember, those blogs are great for also getting your stables ready for stable duel contests, as I include all of the fantasy stable prices in my picks. And I encourage you, particularly for Saturday, go over and check out Stable Duel. It's a really fun fantasy sport. And the best part is on Saturday, they have a free contest for Santa Anita. So if you don't want to wager any money, and a lot of times the entry pot is just a couple bucks. It's not very much. It can be if you want it to be. There are some more expensive contests, but most of the contests are between $5 and $25. But like I said, on Saturday, there's a free contest at Santa Anita. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. It's a great way, if you've never done it before, try it out and see what the fuss is all about. Now, finally, make sure to interact with us on Twitter @FailedToMenace or on YouTube to let me know how you think the races are going to break down this weekend, and share with your fellow horse racing fanatics on social media. Now, in the interest of time, we're going to talk about the Grade 2 races, of which there are 3, in a little bit of a group. And I'm not going to run through the entire field for those Grade 2 races, but I will give you my win, place, and show and talk a little bit about each of them. So let's dive right in. And on Saturday, they get it started early out on the West Coast, because race 3, which has a post time of 4:30 Eastern time, is the City of Hope Mile Stakes, and that is a Grade 2. So the third race on the card, we already have a Grade 2. Typically, that comes a little bit later, but they're front-loading this, so that's always really exciting. And this is a turf race. And so this is a 5-horse race that has a stacked field. And if you want to take a look, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the graphic that we're going to put up here. But the City of Hope Mile Stakes is a mile on turf. And this is a very chalky field. And what I mean by that is there are 3 dominant horses and then 2 middling horses. And they're not bad, but they can't compete reasonably with the top 3. And so The three dominant horses are Mo Forza, Smooth Like Straight, and Hit the Road. And Mo Forza is the betting line favorite. And, when I was handicapping this race, I couldn't help but think back to one of my favorite professional wrestlers from my childhood. And for those of you who know me, I have a bit of a connection with professional wrestling. I was a pro wrestling ring announcer for many years for my father's independent wrestling promotion in Pennsylvania. That's another podcast, though. But when I was looking at Mo Forza, I thought back to my favorite wrestler, Ric Flair, who used to say, to be the man, you got to beat the man. And Mo Forza is the man. And as good as Smooth Like Straight is, and as good as Hit the Road is, they haven't beaten the man. And they always come up just short. And sometimes frustratingly short. But Mo Forza just has that kick at the end. And, I will be honest, I was a little skeptical of Mo Forza coming back at the last race, which was the Del Mar Mile back in August, because he had a 10-month layoff. And I thought, well, you just never know. 10-month layoff. There's going to be some rust maybe. Goes out and runs a 103 Beyer speed number. Runs a monster race. Comes from 4 lengths off to win by a head. Knock off Smooth Like Straight. Knock off Hit the Road. And this is a horse that won last year's City of Hope Mile Stakes as well. Going back 3 races, he's run plus 100 Beyer speed numbers in each of them. He loves the distance. He's had 7 career races on turf at a mile. He's won 5 of them, finished second once. So loves the distance, can beat this competition, has beaten this competition, and has beaten strong, probably potentially stronger competition than this. Smooth Like Straight is a very good horse, though. 4 straight races at 100 plus Beyer speed numbers, is an amazingly consistent horse. Has a grade 1 victory at the Shoemaker Mile back in May. Now, it should be noted, obviously, Mo Forza didn't run in that. And has lost to some monster horses like Mo Forza, like United, who we're going to talk about a little bit later. And has lost to actually Hit the Road occasionally as well. So, Smooth Like Straight's a great horse. But every time I just kind of play this out, I just kind of think, how is this going to work? And every time that plays out in my head, I just keep seeing Mo Forza crossing the finish line first. Now, what's interesting is you're going to have a couple of horses, Order and Law, which is one of the long shots, probably going to push Smooth Like Straight for early speed. Maybe not that much. And Smooth Like Straight has wired the field before. He did it at the aforementioned Shoemaker Mile. So we'll see. But I think those 3 horses are so clearly the class of the field. And the way I have it is I have Mo Forza to win. I have Smooth Like Straight to place, and I have Hit the Road to show. I have the exact same order from the Del Mar Mile because I think this is just going to play out the exact same way. I would love to potentially go with something like Hit the Road or Smooth Like Straight to win, but I just see Mo Forza getting better. I think that 103 was the worst race he's going to run this year. So I think he's going to improve. He's had that, like I said, long layoff. Now it's the second race back. So I think he's going to be even better. I also really just trust Flavien Prat. I think Flavien, the jockey of Mo Forza, is going to give him a great ride. And I know that I don't love the inside post position, but overall, the number 2 hole, but I'm much happier with that than the 1 hole. So that's how I see the City of Hope Mile Stakes playing out. Now let's move to the Santa Anita Sprint Championship, which is a win and you're in Breeders' Cup race. It is a grade 2, but it is a win and you're in. And this is 6 furlongs on dirt. And this is another one where it's hard to go against the chalk. And there's also not a ton of huge long shots in this race. It's a little bit of a smaller field, and it's got some pretty established tiers. Dr. Chevelle being one of them, the winner of the Bing Crosby back in July. And so Dr. Chevelle's a horse that had been improving. I really like that horse going into that Bing Crosby, ended up winning, and a very close finish with CZ Rocket and Flagstaff and other horses kind of right there. And so we'll see. I'm actually fading Dr. Chevelle a little bit here. I don't love that he drew the number one post position. That concerns me a little bit, and particularly in a sprint race. So that's something just to keep in mind. He has broke from the inside before and won from the inside. It was at a much lower level race. It was in an optional claiming race. So it's something to consider. He also has won the last two by a neck. So the margin of error is rather minimal. Now, in sprint races, the margin of error is often rather minimal, but still, it's not as if he's been blowing away everybody at 6 furlongs. It's been very close the last two times with 8 rings and CZ Rocket last time out. And so I'm interested to see how this is going to play out this time. I could see a very close 1 through 4, 1 through 5, all finishing within a length of each other. I think that's actually probably pretty likely. So in that case, it might just matter if you're bumped at the start, how you get jostled back, maybe how much you have to kind of push a horse at the beginning. So, the fact that Dr. Chevelle doesn't like to necessarily be on the front means he'll probably shuffle back a little bit. It's just interesting to see how he navigates that. I really like CZ Rocket to come back. I mean, this is a horse that's incredibly consistent, just runs high 90s to plus 100 Beyer speed figures, and has done it for well over a year, going on 2 years. A lot of victories at this distance, has won at Santa Anita, always finishes on the board this year. And I just think keeps getting better. Had a couple of seconds and a third last 3 times out, but won the previous 2 times out over Whitmore and Flagstaff. So I do like CZ Rocket to win. I'm a little worried about Florent Giroux. That's a whole nother discussion. Florent sometimes has some baffling rides, but I like that CZ Rocket has more of an outside post position or a little further outside. I mean, he's in the 4th hole, so it's not too bad. So we'll see, but he can get him outside, which is where Florent likes to be, and that's okay. And then there's Flagstaff, who is a horse that it's remarkably consistent. And I think Flagstaff's a horse that you have to take seriously, much like CZ Rocket, just runs pretty much to the same numbers every single race, has gone up against serious competition, has one grade 1 victory under his belt and other graded stakes victories as well. Has beaten horses like Lexingtonian and Whitmore. So, has come in very close seconds to a horse like Firenze Fire. So this is an outstanding horse in his own right. So I do like that. The horse where I think you're going to find some value is Vertical Threat. He had a terrible Bing Crosby. I really liked that horse going into the Bing Crosby, and he just did not perform particularly well. And finished in last place. But I was there in Charlestown when he came back for the Russell Road Stakes, and he won with incredible ease and won by 3 plus lengths, and there was really not much of a challenge there. But I like that he got his groove back a little bit and got used to winning. And Charlestown's kind of a funky track. It's a 6 furlong track, so it's hard to, I think, rack up that super high Beyer speed number. And he bounced back with an 88, which is not bad. I do think the 102 Beyer speed number that he had 3 races ago may end up being a little bit of an anomaly for him. But I think Vertical Threat's a horse that will probably settle in running that kind of mid 90 to maybe mid to low 90 Beyer speed number. And I think in that case, I like Vertical Threat to creep into the board and your trifecta bets. So I have it CZ Rocket to win, Flagstaff to place, and Vertical Threat at 6-1 to show that's where you'll catch a little bit of value. So let's talk about the final of the grade 2 races. And that's the final race on the card, actually, the John Henry Turf Championship, which is 1.25 miles on turf. And this is a huge field, which is not uncommon for distance turf races, but this is a really interesting field, I think. And I really am focused on how this race is going to start. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of horses that are going to go for the lead here. I think Acclimate and Neptune's Storm, both are going to go for the early lead. I think Award Winner, who's from the inside post position, is going to go to the early lead. The question is, can any of those horses wire the field? And I don't think they can. I think if anybody, I lean towards Neptune Storm. I actually really like the value on Neptune Storm at 6-1. But I don't like any of those horses necessarily to wire the field. And so then you kind of have to look at, okay, well, where do we go then? I think United is the obvious choice. Has run some huge races over the years. And, 1.25 miles works really well for him. And so I think that the distance sets up. And I think particularly his running style is going to set up well because there's going to be early speed because it's not just going to be Acclimate and Neptune Storm, but like I said, Award Winner. You're going to have some horses pushing that early pace. And as someone who likes to have a late kick, United, that's going to set up nicely for him. He's going to be able to sit back, let that early speed run, and then the last 2 or 3 furlongs, he's going to be able to kick it into overdrive. So I like that running style. Another horse I like is Masterpiece at 5-1. You're going to catch a little bit of value there. Really surprised me with a very strong showing at the Del Mar Handicap after switching barns and leaving Chad Brown's barn and going to Mike McCarthy. And I think it's possible that a change of scenery was good for this horse. I also think it seems like a reduction in distance might be the right thing for him. He was running kind of a 1 3/8, 1.5 miles. I think 1.25 miles is a really good distance for this horse, maybe even 1 1/8 miles. But I like Masterpiece, and I think this running style works out nicely. And his workouts have been great since he's moved him to the West Coast. So I like Masterpiece there. And then I'll give you a real long shot that I think, if you're looking for some value, provides it. And that's Friars Road at 15-1. This is only his second career turf start. His last start was his first career turf start. This was a horse that was putting up, kind of middling numbers on dirt, transitioned to turf, ran his best speed figure on turf, which almost never happens. Typically your speed numbers go down when you go on turf. Not in this case. Went up and won with ease at 1 3/8 miles. So you can do the distance. He seems to really like the surface. Mike McCarthy's a good trainer. Umberto Rispoli is a good jockey. He ran an 89, which is not going to be enough to win this race, but I think there's going to be progress. I think you can look at some extrapolation and you can look at some projections there. And I just think as a long shot, I like Friars Road. And 15-1, I don't think there's any harm in maybe including him on the back end of a exotic or, just putting maybe a $2 or $3 show bet or a place bet on him because I do think this horse ends up hitting the board. So how do I see the John Henry Turf Championship playing out? Well, I have United to win, Masterpiece to place, and Friars Road to show. So with all of that said, let's shift to the Grade 1 races, which are both win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup. And there's going to be a bunch of those win and you're ins coming up here in the next couple of weeks, whether it's at Santa Anita, whether it's at Belmont, whether it's at Keeneland, whether it's over in France. We got a lot of win and you're ins, and we're going to try to cover as many of them as we can on the Win Play show. So let's talk about the first of those Grade 1 races, the Rodeo Drive. So let's take a look at this field. It's 1.25 miles on turf for 3-year-olds and up who are fillies and mares. And in post position 1, we have the horse Dog Tag, trained by Richard Mandela and jockeyed by Joe Bravo. Then Fast Jet Court, a Brazilian horse trained by Mike McCarthy and jockeyed by Drayton Van Dyke. Then Nije Blanche, not French, the horses, and then trained by Leonard Powell and jockeyed by Juan Hernandez. And then number 4, Holy of Going to Vegas, the morning line favorite, trained by Richard Baltzis and jockeyed by Umberto Rispoli, and a generous morning line at 5-2, so decent value even for the morning line favorite. And then at the 5, Holy of Ride for the Cause, again trained by Mike McCarthy and jockeyed by Mario Gutierrez. Then Cristal, trained by Pete Miller and jockeyed by Abel Cedillo. Magic Attitude, a British horse trained by Arnaud Delacour and jockeyed by John Velasquez. Then in the 8 hole, you have a couple of intriguing horses. Luck, trained by Richard Baltus and jockeyed by Flavion Pratt, going off at 3-1. And Red Lark, an Irish horse, trained by Peter Gallagher, jockeyed by Mike Smith. So, how do I see this race playing out? Well, this is an interesting one because the surest bet in the Rodeo Drive is for Dog Tag, who's going in off at 4-1, to come in at second place. That's the best bet in the world. Why do I say that's the best bet in the world? Because the last 4 races, Dog Tag has come in second place. Has come in second place by a neck, has come in second place by a head, has come in second place by a length, has come in second place. This is amazing. Has come in second place at a mile and a 16th, a mile and an eighth, and a mile and a quarter. I mean, this horse comes in second no matter where you run him, how long you run him, run her, I should say. And, just comes in second place. And some horses are like that. I would love for this horse to win. I really would. I mean, from a storyline standpoint, that would make me so happy. This horse that just always seems to come, is always the bridesmaid, never the bride. I just would love to see Dog Tag win. I'm not necessarily sure about that, but man alive, Dog Tag should be on every single one of your exotics because she is as reliable as any horse out there to hit the board. So absolutely love Dog Tag in terms of hitting the board. And at 4-1, that's pretty good value, actually. I think for a horse that has shown against really high graded stakes competition, she can always come in second. She's right there at the finish. So a lot to like with Dog Tag, and I'm rooting for her personally. I'd love to see that horse win. Going to Vegas is the favorite, and at 5-2, those are decent odds actually for a morning line favorite. I mean, sure, they'll get bet down, but that's not bad return on an investment. Is a remarkably consistent horse, much like Dog Tag. The difference is she ends up in the winner's circle, including 3 of her last 4 races. Distance won't be an issue, but early speed might be. The one time going to Vegas kind of got skunked. It's when she stepped up in class and she got smoked at the grade 1 Gamely. And the opening half mile was under 46 seconds. And that's not her comfort zone. Her comfort zone is opening fractions that are around 48-3, 48-4, maybe 49-1 opening half miles. Now, the good news is that she should be able to get that pace because there's 0 early speed in this field. And she may actually end up be the one setting the early pace, which is something she did at the grade 3 Santa Anita back in March, and she wired the field then. So she's capable of doing that, setting the pace and wiring the field. I wouldn't be shocked if that's what plays out this time as well. Now, this is a step up in class, so there's something to be said for that. So, I think that's just something to keep in mind because there is a lack of early speed. Now, there was a lack of early speed last week when we talked about the cotillion at Parks in Pennsylvania. And we mentioned how always Carina was the only early speed on paper. And as I mentioned in my race recap, when I got there and watched the post parade, obligatory with Jose Ortiz, trained by Bill Mott, had a vigorous post parade workout. And it was obvious that horse was going to go for the lead because they realized if we let always Carina in this case get to the lead and just hang out, we're skunked. We got to push her. I will be interested to see whether another horse decides to do that in this race. If somebody almost sacrifices their horse to kind of go, we're going to push going to Vegas because the only way that horse loses is if we push her. And if we just let her set her own pace, we're all in trouble. It'll be very interesting to see how that plays out. Couple of other horses to keep in mind. Horse by the name of Luck, I mentioned, won her first start in the United States last time out. This would be a step up in competition. She has taken well to the turf based upon her workout figures. At 3-1, I don't love those odds. Actually, I wish they were a little bit higher. So for the value, I'm not thrilled with Luck in that regard. I like the horse. I think the horse may run a very competitive race, but from a betting standpoint, I don't love the 3-1 odds there. A couple of long shots. Fast Jet Court, 10-1, Brazilian horse, made a really solid effort the first time out. And I think distance might be a little bit of a question mark, but I like the value. And distance isn't like a deal breaker at a mile and a quarter, but I think maybe she's better at a mile and an eighth, or a mile. But that said, like I said, ran a solid first time out, and typically horses from abroad run a better race the second time out. That their first time out running on American turf in an American race is a learning experience, and you see an improvement the second time out. If she's able to improve upon that second time out, I like her to hit the board actually. And then the other one is starting on the far outside, Red Lark at 10-1. May not have what it takes to win at this level, but again, I like the value there to potentially hit the board on the back end of exotics. So there's a lot of intriguing plot in this race. A lot of it's going to come down to that early pace. Is going to Vegas going to be just let to sit on the lead by herself, not getting pushed? In which case, I think she wires the field easily. Or is somebody going to jump up and push her? And, you just don't know. I mean, to some extent. I mean, you look and, there are some horses that, dog tag prefers to sit in more of a stalking position, has sat second and third occasionally, but tends to like to come from a little ways off the lead. Probably not as far off as she normally does, because that way she wouldn't finish second as much. Fast Jet Court likes to have a late kick. Nije Blanche likes to have a late kick. Yeah, going to Vegas is really the only horse. I mean, maybe Ride for the Cause is a horse that does like to be consistently forwardly placed in like that 3-4 spot. Maybe Ride the Cause with Mario Gutierrez pushes a little bit. We'll see. But a lot of these horses in the field like to be late kickers and like to come from behind and don't like to be on the lead. So that'll be intriguing to see how that plays out. So how do I see the finish actually going? Well, listen, my heart is rooting for dog tag. I want to see that horse win. Nothing would make me happier than see dog tag winning, because it just has to kill the connections and probably, isn't so fun for the horse to always come in second. Although the horse, do they know? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But ultimately I'm going to go with going to Vegas to win, because I don't know if anybody's going to push her. And I just like her to set her own pace and have plenty in the tank to win and wire the field. So I like going to place to win. I like dog tag to place. I just gotta like that horse to finish second. And then I'll put a little bit of value there at the back end with Fast Jet Court to show. So let's move on to what is become the signature race today, which is another win in Urin, another grade one, the Awesome Again Stakes. And this has gotten a lot of headlines because Medina Spirit, of course, scratched from the Pennsylvania Derby to choose to stay out in California and run at the Awesome Again Stakes the next week. And so let's take a look at that field. The Awesome Again Stakes, of course, a mile and an eighth on dirt for 3-year-olds and up. It's an 8-horse field. In the number 1 hole, you have Tis a Magician, trained by Richard Mandella and jockeyed by Flavian Pratt. Then mid-court, trained by John Sheriffs and jockeyed by Edwin Maldonado. Then you have another John Sheriff's horse, Express Train, jockeyed by Juan Hernandez. And then in the number 4 hole, you have Stiletto Boy, trained by Ed Boger Jr. and jockeyed by Kent DeSormo. And then the aforementioned Medina Spirit, trained by Bob Baffert and jockeyed by John Velasquez. Right next to him is Azul Coast, another Bob Baffert horse, jockeyed by Abel Cedillo. Then Tripoli, a horse that just seems to keep improving, trained by John Sadler and jockeyed by Tiago Pereira. And then finally, Idol, a horse coming off a bit of a layoff, trained by Richard Baltzis and jockeyed by Joe Bravo. So how do I see the Awesome Again Stakes playing out? Well, again, a lot of this is going to come down to pace. Medina Spirit likes to get on the lead. No doubt about it. What's interesting is a lot of horses in this race like to get on the lead. Tis a Magician likes to get on the lead. And I would not be surprised, particularly given that post position, in that number 1 post position, Flavian Pratt is going to push Tis a Magician to the lead. Because the last thing you want is to get bunched down on the rail further back, or heaven forbid, kind of push behind the whole field. So he's going to push Tiz to go to the lead. Medina Spirit's going to go to the lead too. And Stiletto Boy is also going to go to the lead. So you got a lot of horses that are going to want to go to the lead. Tripoli likes to stay in stalking position, likes to stay that 3-4 slot. So that's going to set up well for him. The question is whether or not this is going to push those three horses I mentioned, Tiz Magician, Stiletto Boy, or Medina Spirit, too much. And so there's some questions there. Now, the other thing that's interesting is you have Express Train at 4-1. Early positioning for Express Train seems to have some pretty serious implications, as he really struggles to make up ground if he gets shuffled back too much at the start. The problem in this case is that there's going to be a lot of horses competing for early position and stalking position. And I just see Express Train maybe getting shuffled back a little too much. And when that horse gets shuffled back to like the 6, 7, 8 position, just does not finish well. Really needs to be in that 2, 3, 4 slot. And I just don't necessarily see Express Train being there. If he does get up in the 2, 3, 4 slot, then you really have to worry about early speed, because then you're going to have 4 horses that all like to be on the lead pushing each other. And again, that sets up beautifully for Tripoli, who is hoping for an early speed duel so he can run into it and finish strong. And Tripoli is a horse that, as I mentioned, just keeps improving. A horse that has gone 100, 100, and 104 the last 3 times out in terms of Beyer speed numbers. Won the Pacific Classic, which was a grade 1, beat Tiz Magician, beat Dr. Post, won that comfortably and really an impressive fashion. And so has won 3 of the last 4 races out. So, Tiago isn't winning a ton this year. He's only winning about 10% of his mounts, but John Sadler's a good trainer. And Tripoli just seems to be a horse that is figuring it out at the right time and has won at 1 1/16 and 1 1/4. I think the 1 1/8 actually sets up really well for him. So I like Tripoli quite a bit. I also like Idol. Idol's a horse that has had about a 7-month layoff since March, and a little bit reminds me of Mo Forza, where I was not sure about Mo Forza with a 10-month layoff, and he came out and ran a 103. So what do I know? But Idol was a horse that was running consistent high 90s and plus 100 speed numbers, easily going the distance, like Santa Anita, and was beating some of these horses, beat Express Train, beat a horse like Maxfield. So very impressive, very, very impressive horse. Has had some really good workouts, just worked out earlier this week. Or I guess late last week, I should say, at 6 furlongs in 1 minute and 12 seconds. You got to like that. Looks really crisp. If Idol's able to pick up anywhere near where he left off, then he's going to be a factor in this race. Now, you're not getting huge odds there. You're only getting probably 5-1, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not overwhelming, but I do like Idol to be included in a lot of your exotics. I think this horse is going to pick up. Maybe not the way Mo Forza did, but I do like this horse to pick up where it left off. I'll just briefly say something about Medina Spirit, who, again, I always like the horse. I don't blame the horse for the connections. Medina Spirit had a perfectly fine tune-up after a 3-month layoff. Was not amazingly impressive, but certainly ran well. This is a step up in class. This is going up against some older horses who are a little bit more mature and experienced. And more importantly, going up against older horses who are running some of the best races of their life. These are not older horses that are maybe slipping a little bit, maybe in decline. These are older horses that are peaking, quite frankly. And I'm not sure if Medina Spirit is peaking right now. And I just worry if that early pace might be a little too much. And again, great workout figures, love the horse, but I just worry about that. And this is not me trying to be negative about Bob Baffert. If you listen to my preview of the races on Friday, you know that I picked a lot of Bob Baffert horses to do well on that day. If he's got a good horse, he's got a good horse. I just worry about Medina Spirit here. So how do I see the Awesome Again Stakes playing out? Well, I have Tripoli to win. I have Tiz Magician to place. I think Flavion's going to do a great job Flavian's going to do a great job, and Flavian always does a great job, but he's going to, I think, give a masterful ride to that horse. And then I do like Idle to Show. I think that horse is going to hit the board, and I think is going to pick up a little bit where he left off. So that's how I see it playing out. I just don't see Express Train maybe getting the right type of ride, and I see Medina Spirit maybe getting worn out by the early speed. So that's why I have Tripoli to win, Tis a Magician to place, and Idle to Show. So that is all we have the time for today. But I hope you enjoyed the preview for the Saturday races at Santa Anita. And listen, we're not done. That's right, tomorrow. You heard me, tomorrow. I'm going to have another preview, another pod, video, and blog for the Sunday races at Santa Anita. Santa Anita is going to kill me. This Friday, Saturday, Sunday stuff is with graded stakes races on each of them. Oh, take a day off. Let me catch my breath. But going to have another podcast, video, and blog for you tomorrow for the Sunday races. And then after all that's over, I will have a podcast-only race recap on Monday where I cover what I got right, what I got wrong, and lessons learned from the weekend, of which there will be many, I am sure. Finally, just a reminder to follow, download, rate, and review the Win Place Show on the podcast platform of your choice, and subscribe to the Win Place Show on YouTube, in addition to following me on Twitter at the handle @Failed to Menace. And check out amalfimedia.com for all of the great horse racing content you need to get you through the Breeders' Cup and beyond. Well, until next time, friends, I'm Matthew DeSantis, wishing you a great and prosperous day at the races, and reminding you that it's now post time.